And welcome into another episode of the 100 Year Podcast. My name is Dario Strange. And this week we have a guest who is, I would say, at the cutting edge of AI filmmaking, Ben Nash. Ben, how you doing?
Good, Dario. How are you? Nice to be here.
I'm pretty good. I'm in New York. You're in Ohio, yeah?
Yeah, Cincinnati, Ohio. Moved here last year from California.
From California. Wait, where in California were you?
Most of my time was out in San Francisco. I spent a few years in Lake Tahoe too, and then even did a stint down in LA. We're down to a beach for a little bit, but yeah, I'm originally born in Ohio, mostly raised in North Carolina, and most of my adulthood was out in California. So good to be back, close to my mom and all that.
Okay, so yes, we'll get into this later, but I'm sure you're following like what's happening in Hollywood right now with AI and everything. We'll touch on that later. But for people who don't know your work already, like if for anyone listening or watching, if you follow AI video creation closely, you've probably seen Ben's work. But if you don't, if you're new to the space, um, just you need to bennash.com. But give me like your socials. Let's just start with that. So while maybe
Yeah,
people are listening or watching, they can kind of like check out what you do.
yeah. I post mostly to Twitter, X, at Ben Nash, BenNash, and same handle on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I post a lot to YouTube too. I probably curate the best stuff on YouTube, but I'm most prolific on Twitter/X. Yeah, that's my socials, and bennash.com is really kind of my old life. I'm also previously a web developer, designer, and industrial designer. So I'm gonna update that site soon to be mostly about AI music videos.
So yeah, I
So
want to touch
yeah.
on the whole X thing later because I have a
Okay.
bunch of questions on that. But first, let's kind of paint the picture of who you are. So I think, like historically, in terms of your career, you're a web developer, designer. You were trained at the School of Design, North Carolina School of Design, College
Yeah,
of Design.
yeah. NC State School of Design. Studied industrial design there. Also did several years of computer science. Almost switched over to computer science. Did a lot of internships in computer science, but finished up with my industrial design degree and did that for a few years. And that's actually what brought me out to California in the first place. Started working out there for a few ID firms. But I quickly transitioned mostly into web design and development for most of my career. In college, I actually studied a lot of animation, did a lot of After Effects and 3D modeling. And back then in the 90s, we called it interactive media. I was doing CD-ROMs and things like that in Flash. So yeah, animation's always kind of been at the core of what I want to do. Video work too, but kind of put it aside for a good 20 years. And really, AI helped me and enabled me to get back into it.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you just mentioned that because there aren't many people like who are still around who like very in detail remember the CD-ROM, Macromedia Flash days. I
Yeah,
remember them quite well. I used to produce them, work in the space. Like, do you see any similarities to kind of like how AI is like encroaching on the traditional space versus how that like kind of developed?
man, this is a good topic to bring up right away. Flash, yeah, exactly. That what was it called? Action script, I think. Was it was kind of I was a designer first, but again, always did computer science. Always been a coder too. My first website was in 1993, first year of college, and so I've always been a coder too. So yeah, when Flash came out, that was just a whole new paradigm for people that could do both, create animation with code. So I was just completely amazed by it back then. But then,
Isn't that
go ahead.
isn't that the South Park guys? Didn't they start with am I wrong on that? I
You
feel like they
know,
started with the Flash stuff.
yeah, I think you're right. I'm not 100% sure either. But yeah, they were one of the first to they were putting out an episode a week that was responding to real life events and political things. That was amazing that they were able to put this out in a week and not 6 months later and it was already stale content. So yeah, they were coding a lot of programming. A lot of their animations, which I remember being just blown away. That was also 1997-ish when Cartman first came out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the exact tools. I just feel like I remember back in the day that people like kind of said that they were Flash animators, and looking at the work, even now, definitely has that kind of flash animation look. And kind of to your point, because of that, at least whether they use those tools or not, people like them who animated like them were able to, I think, more quickly respond to kind of like current events, memes. And I kind of see the same thing happening with AI. Maybe not so much in terms of viral memes, but you can see just the sheer amount of production that's coming out right now. You know, I'm seeing some parallels between kind
Yeah,
of how that developed.
that's a good point. Another parallel that we could probably draw from it is even the janky style of South Park when it first came out. You know, moving these flat shapes that weren't necessarily fluid or smooth all the time, and you know that style was kind of their own aesthetic that they came up with at the time and got accepted right away, and no one even noticed after a few seasons or episodes. And same thing with AI. You know, it definitely has an aesthetic, a certain style to it that our current tools at least give. So yeah, it's a good parallel to be drawn there too.
So I'm wondering, like, you know, some fine artists and traditional illustrators and animators, like the extent of their technical interest maybe goes to like a Wacom tablet or maybe Procreate or something like that. Some of them dive into the 3D tools, but you know, many don't. I'm wondering, do you feel like your background in tech meets design kind of gives you like an advantage entering this new AI space?
Yeah, it gives me an advantage. Maybe not so much though, as all these tools evolve. I, I had a theory earlier in the summer that you know current tools that you know like Runway and now Pika for you know text to an image to video. I thought they were maybe going to lose out to more traditional 3D tools, maybe like a Blender or something that your Blender already has all this three-dimensional camera controls, and that's what your Runway didn't have until recently. And I thought, you know, this summer that as soon as Blender and all these other 3D tools implement AI generation into them, which they are, I thought they would definitely surpass any other AI first tool. But I actually changed my position on that. I started 3D modeling again in the late 90s with or mid 90s with Maya, and that's hard to learn and use 3D Studio Max and all that back then. You know, and even for my career, I used a lot of you know like SolidWorks and FormZ and Rhino and all these 3D programs in the early 2000s. But it's too hard. You know, it's a lot of it's amazing. You can do a lot, but it's not always a entry level thing without you know buckling down and diving in for hundreds and hundreds of hours and months on end to get some good quality results. Whereas now I've kind of changed my position on that and think that, you know, the things that we're getting out of Runway and Pika with just simple web-based AI tools and even using Discord chat to do these things, that the storytelling ultimately is what it's all about. So getting the results out of these tools is amazing. I think a lot of 3D tools are actually going to succumb to more of the web-based, easier tools that beginners can jump in and make stuff, you know, in one night. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. It's really, you know, these are pioneering days in this field. It's enjoyable to be a part of.
So I'm glad you brought up all of those kind of, you know, somewhat, at least to the layperson, complicated 3D design tools, because with, you know, given your background, I was surprised, like looking at your, you know, you're agnostic. You try everything in the AI space, you know, which I think is the best approach. But I was surprised you don't, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you did early on, but I don't see a ton of stable diffusion open source experimentation. And as someone who's technical from
Yeah.
you know from your background, I'm kind of surprised. Like,
So
why?
yeah,
Like,
I know what you're
yeah,
at.
why?
I hear this all the time. All my friends are you know, well, a lot of my friends are stable diffusion users and even some midjourney haters amongst my circles. But I personally, you know, I've installed automatic level 11 a few times on my computer. I'm just running a 3-year-old iMac M1 chip iMac, and it's you know not the latest and greatest. And the stable diffusion is pretty slow on my machine, first of all. But the way I look at this, and this is I laugh at this, my own answer here. Yeah, as a web developer during the day or night, whatever, whenever I'm working, the last thing I want to do is install something like Automatic 1111 and maintain it and learn it. If I can pay someone else to do that work, I will. It's, you know, I charge myself an hourly rate, what my own time is worth. And if I'm spending more time on something taken away from my time that I could be making money, I'd rather just pay someone else to give me a easy to use software. So that's my stance on that. But even today, I was asking a friend about a Stable Diffusion feature that I wish I had. So I am limiting myself by not fully embracing Stable Diffusion right away. But again, all these web tools, SDXL, the latest model for Stable Diffusion, that's now implemented in hundreds of online apps. So I'm glad that there's open source for this scene as well. Definitely support it and encourage it. But as far as like running it locally and learning it, it's always been kind of a little bit of a roadblock when I can get so much out of all the tools that cost $5-10 a month. So
Okay, well, my first question, whenever I get this kind of answer about Stable Diffusion, is not that you would ever create spicy content, as they say. I won't say the P word, but racy content that maybe goes against the grain. A lot of these models now have kind of curation from the company offering the tool, where certain keywords are either blocked or flagged. Specifically, I know in midjourney, like if you write the wrong phrase, you get flagged, and you can appeal it, and yes, you get usually approved very quickly, but there's still it exists, the curation exists. Whereas with Stable Diffusion, not only do you have all these different models that you can use, to inject into the tool, but you can do whatever you want. So that's not a roadblock for you. You don't.
it is absolutely. In fact, earlier in the summer, a friend of mine was implementing two different apps. One was a private app just for them and their friends, and the other was a public version of the same thing. And that public version was meant for that type of content that Midjourney would ban instantly. And they invited me to both of them, the public one and the private one that they used for just their friends. And honestly, I was getting amazing results out of that. I wasn't again going after adult content or anything like that, but the look and feel of what I was getting. I mean, I did get some pretty beautiful looking people out of it. So, but it wasn't going full nudity or anything like that. It was it definitely had a different aesthetic and style, of course, than Midjourney. So I do appreciate those. Unfortunately, they shut down both of those apps, and I was really disappointed because that was my go-to for this certain style. So yeah, I'm still, like you said, I'm agnostic. I'm constantly trying new tools every day. I'm trying something new. I do have my go-to favorites, but I do recognize sometimes if I'm using too much of one tool and get locking myself in there. So I'm constantly trying to expand. And again, even today, I was asking some Stable Diffusion friends, like, okay, how do I do this? And is there a website I could go to try it, just to test it before I try to install it again? But I don't know, like a good friend just got a pretty high-powered PC, and I'm kind of living vicariously through him as he's installing it and doing new stuff. So yeah, I think right now, probably one of my only roadblocks is I just want another machine, better RAM. So I'll do it soon again.
I want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I want you to rank A, B, C, or D AI image generation tools. I'm gonna mention them, and you just give them a grade. All right. Kaiber.
B.
Okay.
Yeah.
You use something that I hadn't heard of before. Neural something.
Frames. Yep. That's
Neural frames.
a solid A for sure.
Solid A.
I could
Okay.
go in with that as long as you want me to. I could tell you all the ins and outs.
Okay. We can circle back to that.
Yeah.
runwayml Gen 2.
Now it's a A minus. It was a D minus for up until a month ago. I say I was one of their earliest supporters. Really promoted them a lot before they were public, and but there was so much hype from people that weren't into Gen 2 or it wasn't available publicly that I was only getting maybe 5% of what I was producing as something usable. The other 95% was just trash. And, I went public about that actually an hour before they launched Gen 2 publicly. And I burned some bridges there for sure for a little while. I'm trying to build them back. But yeah, Runways, and my biggest concern was, there was so much hype over them in the early days of the summer that I thought, man, so many people are going to be disappointed. And sure enough, a lot of people said that as soon as it became public that it was too expensive for what you get. I didn't care about the expense. You can get a lot out of it, but 5% was just like frustrating.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah,
All right.
it.
So
But then they had those two big updates in the past 6 7 weeks that just really brought it back up. It's one of my go-to now. I use it every day again now.
okay, final one, pica.
Oh,
You say
Pike.
pica or pica? Pica?
I say pica,
Pica.
especially ever living
Okay.
in California. I think it's a Spanish pica. But it needs some work, but I'd still give it an A- too. Yeah, it's a great
Okay.
tool for what it is and what it does.
Okay, so that goes back to the neural. I keep forgetting that
Neural frames, yeah.
neural frames. All right, so that sounds like you're ranking them better than.
Yeah, it's a completely different app. You can't do what you can do with Kaiber or now Kaiber I gave a B I think before. I'm very bullish on them. I think they're going to do great. They're I think a little behind on quality right now, but they offer a lot of features that you can't get out of the other ones. For example, you can reskin or reanimate many minutes worth of video all in one go, where Runway and Pika are just seconds. Well, Runway Gen One, I'm still a huge fan of Runway Gen One. It's like Kyber that you can video to video, give it a video and reskin it with a new style. So neural frames though is it's more it's like deforum style animation where it's animating one frame to the next frame to the next frame and so on based on a text input. And where neural frames really shines and they're different at is you can add a music track to it. So you can add your text prompt, you can start with an image, you can add music, and then you can adjust all kinds of settings for how it animates from frame to frame to frame based on the music itself. So let's say there's a snare drum that hits every other second. You could do a zoom based on that snare hit and zoom in and really adjust the video to the music. So it works great for music videos.
This makes me think about before I forget. Have you tried animation diff?
No,
Do you know
tell
about
me
this?
about it.
Okay, well, I don't know a ton, but it's one of the open source tools, and just some of the results I've seen from animation diff. I'm assuming diff is short for diffusion, are just stunning. And you're seeing stuff that's not just kind of like illustrations animated, but real life animations. And I have yet to actually like get my hands dirty and like try. I try to use all the tools. I have yet to try animation diff, but the results are like. Have you ever seen the Netflix Love, Death, and Robots? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, yeah, man. So many people have been hitting me up about that lately. I don't know what I'm doing that makes them think of it, but yeah, I need to catch up on it for sure. That's a Oak Studios production, isn't it?
I don't know the studio behind it, but they basically the idea is that it's an anthology and it's a bunch of shorts, and they take classic science fiction works and then they let artists, whether it's a 3D artist, traditional animation artist, rotoscoping style artist,
Yeah,
give their take on the science fiction story. And just some of the stuff I'm seeing with animation diff, like immediately brings to mind some of the like amazing things I've seen on Love, Death, and Robots. For anyone listening or watching, Love, Death, and Robots, Netflix, highly
yeah.
recommend, highly recommend. And I'd be shocked if the next season doesn't have like at least one episode that's like completely AI generated art.
Yeah, agreed. I hope they do. I mean, honestly, it'll be, you know, a good production tool to you go that route for sure. Yeah, the styles, and I love the fact that they have different artists do different styles with that series. It's it's beautiful work too, just
Yeah,
beautiful.
the variance in styles is a thing that kind of like keeps me going back. Um, all right, so we kind of got your grades for kind of the general AI image generation slash animation tools. Let's kind of like aliens arrive on Earth, right? And for some crazy, stupid reason, this is the scenario always people always bring up. Aliens arrive. What are you going to do if they ask you X? And so aliens arrive on Earth, and they say, okay, your AI, animation tools are so great. Here's a laser gun to your head. Which one are you using to save all of humanity in terms of getting the best output? With the, I guess, fewest amount of attempts.
Oh, that's tough. I again, since the camera controls came out with Runway and Pika at the well, Runway did on a Friday, and I think Pika released their camera controls the next day, at least in a private beta, just to let people know, hey, we're doing the same thing. And so for that 24 hours, I was all Runway. Let's do it. And then Pika is such an easy, fast production. They're still 100% Discord based, which I have pros and cons to that. Same with Midjourney. But um, I've recently started falling back in love with Runway 2's user interface, or Runway Gen 2's user interface. It's actually really fast to batch a lot of scenes all at once, especially if you're using, want the same style with all these. Clicking keep the same seed number for image to video. Yeah, man, that's a tough one.
The laser gun is
Yeah,
to your head.
I know. Today I would go with Runway Gen 2.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Before we get too much further down the, give me your, like, you kind of alluded to it before, but give me your hardware setup, like everything, monitor, your processor, what exact model of like computer you're using, and then give me your base. I know you, again, try everything, but just aside from the question I just asked you, on the daily, your daily routine, what are the tools you go back to, the AI tools you go back to every day? Like, what is your base level setup?
Yeah, so again, majority of everything I do is web based, not much local software, hardware. I will touch it onto music though. This is a good transition into that. So again, it's just a M1 iMac computer here. I have another older iMac here, 27-inch that I use too, but the 24-inch is my main driver. You
What
just
year?
this is, again, now it's approaching 3 years old. So it's the first
Okay.
M1 year that came out.
Okay.
So it's not the most powerful. It's in fact, the 27-inch older iMac, which is 9 years old, is somewhat faster at some things. But it's yeah, again, almost everything's web based. However, when it comes to music, I got my little MIDI keyboard right
Oh,
here,
cool.
and
Okay. Okay.
I'm using that every day. It's
Okay.
mostly for fun, but I've been doing my own music more and more and more. There's an app called Lemonade Seeds, which generates MIDI, and I drag that over to my my little garage band's the easiest for that. But yeah, I've been making more and more of my own music for my videos as well. And that was always from day one when I started. I just started a year ago with doing video. I gave myself last October a 30-day challenge. I did one, and back then it was more like PowerPoint slide animation style, just one image to the next image. And I was so concerned with using copyrighted music that even from day one, I started looking at getting back into making my own music. I grew up playing piano as well. My mom's a piano teacher, so that's always been a big desire to make music as well. And again, just like image and video, all the AI music software out there is really helping out a lot for people to come up.
So, what's your take then on this whole question of, I guess, human created content versus AI content? Meaning, um, it sounds like yeah, I'm not going to say the name, but we have someone in our sphere who is an AI creator, but uses like scripts that he and his partner actually write themselves, and everything else is AI, at least for now. Which kind of like, I see this often where people will kind of like have their workflow primarily AI, but there's this one element, that they'll kind of like go to for like the human touch. Like, so what, I mean, do you feel like what about someone who just uses everything AI? All the music's AI, the imagery's like everything, like the tuning, like I guess what I'm kind of driving at is, if there is no human touch, kind of like what you're alluding to with the piano edition, like, can't, the human just step back at some point? So, I mean,
Yeah,
how important is that human touch? Like, it seems important to you based on the music aspect.
yeah, I mean, there's a ton of nuances to this discussion for sure. So back to the music again, and a year ago, I was using an online app called SoundRaw, and that could generate music, and it could let you rearrange the parts and pieces to different lengths, different intensities, add different tracks for your stems and all that stuff. It had a lot of that element. However, I quickly learned I was hearing the same music that I was creating on other people's videos, and I got really disappointed about that it was not that personal. They were only drawing from a small bank of probably pre-recorded stuff, and that just was a big disappointment. I may be wrong about that, but that's the way it seemed, especially hearing a lot of similar stuff in other YouTube videos. So at that point, I gave up on them, and I still keep that critical eye, especially on the music apps for how much is there an input for the human element, and I've used them all, and to be honest, there's in the music world that in the apps that I've used, even to this day, it does seem like there's less of a human element to the music apps. And that's where I started using this Lemonade Seeds, just to give me it just gives you MIDI for melodies and chord progressions. And that honestly helped me learn music again. I hadn't made much in the past 15 years or so. You take that straight into GarageBand, and I improvise 90% of it. It's just a bass melody that I'm using from AI. So that has a big human element to it. And I think, again, my fear that I'm just using someone else's library of content rather than even AI generated stuff. So I might be a little ignorant there. There's probably some app out there that's like, wouldn't give me everything I want. It's probably Stable Diffusion based. Actually, Stable Audio, just came out a few weeks ago. But that again is, it's text to audio. But I feel, well, there's Stable Audio, and then there's Google Music LM, and Google Music LM, I think, is there's a lot of that one. I feel is truly generating everything from algorithms, and everything that comes out of there seems to be very unique. There's a little bit of voices that appear over and over, but it seems again like it's truly a generated thing versus just picking parts and pieces from recorded music that are then arranged in a song. So there's that a big gray area between the two. But back to your question about even video and images, same thing. There is an aesthetic to all the these apps. Midjourney definitely shows the same faces a lot over and over and over, and even architecture. I was big into Midjourney architecture for a while, and I thought I was hitting on some unique things, and then sure enough, it's especially the newer versions, the Midjourney 5.2 that we're in, is just a lot of people do generate a lot of the same looking things. So that is a little disappointing. It makes me think that I don't have any skills. So to me, just an image is just an image. There's not much to it. If I can create a story now, that's really where the human element comes in, and I can take these images and videos and music and combine them all together into a movie. That's where I'm pushing myself, because I know that there's not apps that do that quite yet. Now they are coming, like you said. There is going to be a point where we can say, give me a new episode of South Park about Cartman going to the moon to buy Bitcoin, and sure enough, they'll give you 30 minutes or something. So, and that'll be fun and all. But right now, there's a lot of skills involved in creating these videos that it crosses all aspects of, again, video, music, and imagery, and storytelling and writing. I also use ChatGPT regularly to help generate scripts, even prompts, outlines of stories. It's mostly for speed. It helps me get through that process. I did a video, it's pinned to my Twitter right now. It's called Crashing Celeste. Celeste is a spaceship. And I did that in like 3.5 hours pretty much. And my process there is, oftentimes a lot of my videos weren't pre-planned. I'll be generating something for maybe some other project, and all of a sudden something catches my eye, and I go dive deep into that, and a lot of images start appearing on a like, and I'm like, oh, there's a story here. And then I'll throw
This
that
is
in.
pretty good. What
Yeah.
is this? What'd you use for the animation on this?
That one was Pika, Midjourney Pika, and probably CapCut. I
I wanted to
maybe
ask you about CapCut, by the way.
yeah. Let's talk about that.
Why do you use CapCut like instead of a
'Cause-
traditional
So
digital
again,
editor?
I've been using After Effects since like 1995. I definitely know it and knew it inside and out. Premiere, same thing. I've tried them all, but these days CapCut is so fast, and I mean fast for the user to build things, and are also just the rendering. You go to export the button and it's done. It's so fast. So
But I mean,
it's
does it? I've never used it. Is it like essentially like a traditional nonlinear digital editor, or is there something else involved? Like what?
No, it's like a traditional editor. You have your timeline at the bottom. You pull in your assets. You arrange things. You chop things up. You adjust levels. You add effects. And now I'm talking exclusively about CapCut Desktop. There is a big difference between CapCut on your phone. Even the iOS version versus Android is different. They also have a CapCut.com, which has a whole different set of features. I'm specifically talking about CapCut Desktop on the Mac. I've never seen the
Okay,
PC version, but yeah,
okay.
it's and they iterate daily. There's new features coming out all the time. One of the AI tools I like about it, that again doing music related videos, is they have an AI tool that gives you like beat markers. It analyzes your music and gives you a little marker on the timeline for when the beat hits. And that's so huge for me to be able to. I was doing this manually before. I would do uh, my my scene cuts from right on it again when the beat hit, and manually I was doing all right, but it definitely it took a lot of time to arrange the video assets to the beat. And now you just click one button, it gives you the major beat, and then you click another button, and it'll show you the minor uh, offbeat, and you can snap to those markers so fast. So it's funny because CapCut's meant for beginners, for memes, to make meme videos. It's not really meant for. It wasn't initially made for professional production, but it's good, and the effects that they give you are really good too. Again, it's not a Hollywood killer yet, but it's a fun app.
So this actually brings me back to kind of like a discussion of your tool set, your baseline tool set. So you talked about the hardware. So am I right in assuming that you start with a Midjourney image, or do you use something else?
Mostly Midjourney still these days. Yeah, I mean, I use them all. I do a lot of prompt changes these days. I'm learning. I wasn't a big prompt person ever. I kind of got my own few styles that I would throw in all the time, and really got stuck in my ways for a while. These days, again, I use ChatGPT to help write prompts, but almost more to generate the idea, not the final prompt, but to give me words I might have forgotten or not known about. And so that I'll re-engineer those prompts from Midjourney. I use a lot of blending in Midjourney too. So I'll take images from elsewhere. It's again mostly from other AI tools. I do use a lot of my own photography to start with too.
So you
Uh,
do input your own real world photography in Midjourney
yeah,
for a
yeah,
base layer. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Often it's really helpful for composing the scene for sure. If
Okay.
there's tools like Adobe, is it Firefly? I think you can draw and sketch a scene, and then it'll render to that. But again, actually, I've done that quite a bit too. I'll use that to just get the composition right, and then take that into Midjourney and try to enhance that.
So I want to talk a little bit more about Midjourney, but first I just want to kind of run down the list. So you start mostly, well, sometimes you use a photograph, but you generally start in Midjourney. Now you have your image. We can talk about how we got to the image, but now that you have your image, then what? Like, give me like the kind of mechanical.
Yeah. So
Just so you know.
if I'm using Pika, I'll Pika has two main commands. One is just called animate, and all it takes is an image. There's no options, nothing beyond that. And they try to guess how the image should be animated. I'll do that, knowing I probably won't use that asset, and I'll just see what Pika thinks this image could be animated like. It also gives me an idea too whether I should take that asset further and use the other tool of Pika, and that's the create command. And the create command, you can give it a text prompt with your image. You can give it camera controls like camera rotate, counterclockwise, or pan right, pan up, pan down, zoom in, zoom out. And again, often the animate command will let me know, oh, this will probably work or not. You can remix that first scene that I use the animate command on, and then add the additional controls of pan up, pan down type of thing. So I batch these like crazy. Once I get 30, 40 images of ideas really first, then I'm just copying and pasting the heck out of those into Pika and running these constantly, and then I'll generally do about 30, 40 images at a time and get 30, 40 little quick animated videos, and then I'll go back and redo those each, and then that's the Pika approach. With Runway Gen 2, it's similar. I'll get maybe about 8 different images. I'll use less there. And again, I like the user interface to Runway Gen 2 these days. You can, again, I batch them. I get one going, and I'm adding the next one, and adding the next one, and adding the next one, and doing them all in a line on the same page, and then extending those. Runway lets you extend a 4-second video to another 4 seconds, and another 4 seconds, up to 16 seconds, and that's okay. It's good for abstract art. It's not necessarily good for a realistic scene. So again, Pika is only a 4-second clip that you can't extend it. Actually, I do have some tricks there. I like to do a zoom in and a zoom out of one image, and that'll give me an 8-second clip combining them.
So then you take that, I'm assuming, from either Pika or Runway, and then into Cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I usually by then I'm only maybe 60% done with my asset generation. The story's not complete. I'm filling in gaps, and then I go back to the whole process. I'll start back at midjourney and say, well, now I need this scene, now I need that scene, filling in the gaps, and it can go pretty fast. One of my goals has always been speed. How much can I put out in the next hour? It's
Well, that one of our previous guests who works in the AI video generation space, she made a big point. Julia, she made a big point of saying that she takes a lot of her work, her AI generations, into Photoshop after they've been generated, takes them into Photoshop, kind of gives it like a very unique look, and then moves on from there. Like, is Photoshop not figuring into your
No, yeah,
workflow?
I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't mention that yet at all. I love Photoshop's new generative fill, of course, and I've been using Photoshop for video. Actually, it's slow as all heck, especially the rendering process is just so slow. But you can bring a movie, a MP4 into Photoshop, and you can use generative fill on the video itself to generate a scene outside of your video. If your video, let's say, just takes up 1/3 of your scene, you can generate everything around it, and that's a really fun effect for sure. I again though, I'll try to use that for just parts and pieces, and then I'm usually going to take it out into another editor as well. So
What are you using? Like, it's curious to me that, like, I'm hearing all of this, but I'm not hearing you kind of integrate. I mean, maybe you are, but I'm just not hearing it. After Effects or Blender in any way? Like, is that kind of like coming? Or are you still just like becoming more comfortable with just a mostly exclusively AI tool set, and then you're gonna integrate that stuff? Or like, what? Why aren't you kind of like experimenting with like cross pollination of all these different traditional slash AI tools together? I'm curious.
yeah, oh no, After Effects is still I need After Effects. It's still, especially for nesting compositions inside of compositions inside of compositions. That's where After Effects really shines. But there again, I'm actually I used to try to compose a whole video from start to finish in After Effects. And these days I realize, even that setup is just going to be too much of a memory hog. And so I'm just doing parts and pieces in After Effects a lot. I also use DaVinci Resolve. That was my go-to about a year ago. I was really learning it pretty well. I love it, the node-based editing and workflow there. But there, and it's quality, super quality. Of course, that's super professional. But the setup time is probably, even in After Effects, the setup time can be a little time consuming. I do want to get back into DaVinci. I open it only maybe once a month now. After Effects is probably open every other day. Whereas everything I mentioned so far is just constantly running.
Okay, so let's say you have a, I don't know, some traditional designer or artist or even independent filmmaker who has never touched AI at all, AI tools at all. And you're in a coffee shop and you need to give them like, I don't know, like the 30-second elevator pitch. How do I get started in terms of creating AI video? Like just give like what's the 30-second kind of here go A B C, this is how you get started.
The more you can do up front for your story, the better. Like I said before, I'm a lot of my stories are evolving as I'm diving into different areas and different projects, and then the story will come out of it. But if the more you can storybook your idea from start to finish, I think that really helps the overall story itself. Um, Even after I publish something, sometimes I'm like, man, I totally missed the opportunity here. I wish I would have gone back and did it. So yeah, the more you can outline your story, the better. So images alone can get you really far there. And then, like I said, once I get majority of the story or a lot of it ready, then I'll go straight into Pika or Runway now. So yeah, if you're
Well,
after, I've got
first Midjourney, yeah.
yeah, images.
And
So
then
images can get you far, and you want to, having a consistent style on those images is really important, of course. So using the same similar base prompts for all of these is really important. That's something that a beginner needs to learn. Is you don't want to start fresh every time with a different prompt. You want to keep a consistent style. One helpful hint is if you know of an artist, and this is where the ethics come, or the morality of ripping off someone else's style. If you do know an artist that has a particular style that Midjourney knows about, you can always say in the style of this artist, and that'll help keep a consistent feel. And I mix a couple of famous artists all the time, especially I did do a lot of product design in Midjourney earlier in the year, even a lot of car design and motorcycle design I was doing a lot of. And I would mix some famous designers and architects for that stuff. And yeah, so getting a consistent style from your base images is really important for your end result
well,
too.
yeah,
So
there are two things to discuss there: the ethics part and then the execution part. And I want to first focus on the execution part. As someone who uses this stuff a lot myself, I don't show a lot, and that's for a very specific reason. I'm watching the space develop, and I agree with you in that, like, a lot of what I see is similar. I see a lot of the similar, faces, imagery, approaches, color schemes, and another thing, like harkening back to one of our previous episodes, the idea that if you don't have a background either in writing or in art or in filmmaking, you have a limited prompt tool set from which to work in terms of telling these tools what to do. So if all you know is Spielberg or whatever, Zack Snyder, or Quentin Tarantino, or whatever, in terms of writing, if all you know are these like super famous people, then yeah, your results will likely be, replicated and similar. But if you are actually a student of whatever, writing, art, fine art, uh, obscure independent film, and you actually have like some education in terms of like aesthetics, some of the results you can produce are unlike anything the vast majority of people out there are producing. And I'm pretty excited just on my own, just because some of the stuff I'm producing, like privately, like I'm not seeing anything else. I'm not trying to hype myself up or anything like that, but I'm just not really seeing some of the stuff that I'm producing out there. And I consume a ton, like all day, every day, I'm consuming AI still art and AI animations. And I think a lot of it has to do with like, what Studio Ghibli. Okay, yeah, everyone knows Studio Ghibli, but like, do you know more? I don't know. I'm forgetting Fritz the Cat. Do you know Fritz the Cat?
Well, yeah, yeah.
What's Ralph Bakshi? Do
Okay.
you know
Yeah.
Ralph Bakshi? Do you know that artist? Do you know that animation style? Like stuff like that, like obscure but really cool work. Um, it can be helpful. Same thing with writing. It's just like sure, we know Shakespeare, but do you know David Mamet? In terms of like writing a script or outputting a script, David Mamet meets this or whatever. So now, with regard to the ethics part, so the Writers Guild of America West recently settled their strike or ended their strike, and they sealed a deal with the Hollywood studios. And one of the, I guess, deal points that were agreed upon was that they we're able to still maintain human credit even if a studio injected some sort of AI idea germ or seed into the production process. Um, and so, at least for now, Hollywood writers have retained the ability to, I guess, profit from their work, even if AI is involved, but also use AI. But this idea of like ethics as to like if you use various people's names.
I have been able to make a good living from my craft via the entertainment industry, an industry that thrives when artists' rights to consent, credit, and compensation are respected. I have never worried about my future as an artist, until now. Generative AI is unlike any other technology that has come before. It is a technology that uniquely consumes and exploits the hard work, creativity, and innovation of others. No other tool is like this. When first researching AI, horrified me. I found that almost the entirety of my work, the work of almost every artist I know, and the work of hundreds of thousands of artists had been taken without our consent, credit, or compensation.
Let's just say, Ben Nash wasn't known for being a developer, web developer, and instead you were known for, I don't know, creating oil-based landscapes of specifically of the Netherlands your entire life, and they sold for millions of dollars, and you always, this is your name for 20 years, 20, 30 years. And then people start putting, Ben Nash meets Frank Frazetta, with, whatever, the different little prompt, to raw, that kind of thing, weird, yeah, in midjourney. Like, do you think you'd be okay with that? Why or
Yeah,
not?
no, a great question. I get that a lot, and I have a definitely a strong opinion on this. And I'm on the opinion of the first one to make the most money wins. Like I don't really give a crap about copyright stuff too much. I even have 4 patents to my name, and I don't care. It's if somebody wants to copy my style, which my style I think has gotten a little stale. I try to push it constantly. Back to what you started this off with is for a while everybody was prompting in the style of Wes Anderson, and beautiful images come out of that. Still, I love the images that come out of that prompt style. But again, everybody was doing it. Oh well. And so
Greg Rutkowski,
yeah,
Greg
exactly. I mean,
Rutkowski was one of them. Yeah.
I use him in a lot of my prompts, to be honest. Even in neural frames, I mix him with a lot. I'm doing a music video right now where I'm using him. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, this is just between you and I. No one else
Yeah,
is going to.
yeah. But yeah, exactly. So it's again, some kid in Iowa or Nigeria or somewhere is going to be doing this and putting out videos that make impact, and that's going to be huge. And if that kid can make a name for himself, making content, that's bigger than it's even bigger. Your own reputation and what you can create, to me, is so much more valuable than getting credits on a film or getting, a few dollars paid here and there. I think people fight and waste too much time over this. The whole Hollywood strike, I think, is, I'm going to piss some people off here. I think it was a waste of time, and people could just be making content, to be honest. Like, just go for it. Produce. And that's my take on it. I understand all the sides of this very well. And I just think your personal reputation is, your style is going to be copied. Everything's going to be copied. So
wait, so let's just drill down just for 1 second, just to give you like a direct question. Let's say I am the estate. Frank Frazetta is dead. So the estate of Frank Frazetta. And I find out that, Ben or someone else has been outputting all of these like beautiful, uh, AI generated, digital paintings, but I find out somehow that they've been using, in the style of Frank Frazetta. Do you think that for sure there's no, I guess, let me kind of reverse and kind of put it a different way. In your kind of background, your academic background, I think philosophy was one of your focuses, yeah? It's
Yeah, I
kind of
did.
like one of your concentrations.
Yeah, metaphysical stuff. Metaphysics was I loved it. Even
Okay,
in
so
design. Well, yeah, it had a lot to do with that.
okay, so let's just talk about philosophy for 1 second. So the idea that a human can spend 15 to 20 years on the internet and just become a super fan of Frank Frazetta or some other artist and mimic their style and get it to the point where they can just dash off a perfect Frank Frazetta style painting in 30 minutes, and it's almost indistinguishable from an actual Frank Frazetta painting. Is there, in your opinion, this is the philosophy part, from that human training himself or herself on all of those Frank Frazetta paintings to develop that similar style versus, AI doing the same with no human hand
So
involved?
this kind of brings me over to the NFT world a little bit. And, I have a lot of traditional artist friends, painters that painted a lot, and they thought, oh, I'm going to get into NFTs, and they get their OpenSea account, and they create a separate, here's a failure. They create a separate Instagram account just for their art. And they go nowhere because no one knows who the heck my friend is, no one. And if you don't, again, it comes down to your reputation. An NFT doesn't have to look, people aren't buying NFTs because they look amazing. They're buying NFTs for the artist behind it, and I think that's still the case here. If a famous artist died 10 years ago and his estate's not doing much with it, then his reputation's going to die. And again, a kid in Nigeria who's coming up and making a name for himself and got, 2,000 followers. I have much more respect for that kid just busting his butt trying to put out content constantly than someone kind of trying to come after him for copying him. It's again, what are you doing with your name? That is what I respect a lot. So
Wait a minute, but wait, what about the idea that if you produce a body of work that you have ownership over that unique look and feel of that work? You feel that, are you kind of like anti-copyright in general, or are you like an open
yeah,
source, like
that's
kind of
it.
hardcore
It
open
is a
source guy?
gray area, nuanced thing. I'm leaning towards I don't care about copyright because it's I think people hold on to things or fight over it too much. I think well, here's a little funny thing. I actually found a logo of mine that I designed for a company. I found it in Midjourney because I went to go redesign this logo, and I typed in the same keywords of this company name, and sure enough, they gave me the logo that I designed 5 years ago. And I thought, wow, someone else is going to prompt this. They might, think that Midjourney gave it to them out of nowhere or out of the algorithm. But again, it's what am I going to do with that? It's if someone wants to make content, by all means, don't put any roadblocks in front of them. Now, there is a difference about making money. off of these things for sure, and that's where we are heading. For example, I'm part of the Terminator 2 remake parody project where we're remaking Terminator.
I'm not aware.
Oh, this is
Please
an
explain. I
amazing.
haven't heard. I'm a huge fan of
Oh,
the
then
franchise, but I
this
haven't
is a,
heard this.
amazing project. It's run by two of my favorite AI artists, are Nem Perez and Sway Molina, and it's the website is Our T2 Remake, and they assembled 50 artists who are using AI tools to recreate Terminator 2 as a parody. And again, the parody is thrown on there to get away from copyright issues. We're not trying to make it a replica with AI. And because of that, we're now heading into the comedy direction of this whole thing. It's modeled after the project that was done before AI tools, the RoboCop remake, the parody that was done maybe like 10, 12 years ago. And we have a really tight timeline. The start to finish time was 1 month from when we first assembled and talked to each other, did a big Zoom call, and we had like 39 people in that call. It was an amazing experience to be a part of, and we divided it up into a bunch of scenes, and we all did a little lottery to get our scenes that we wanted, and my scene's about almost 3 minutes long, and it's really two scenes in one there, and it's a lot of fun, and we're gonna be publishing that again as a parody. I think there's a lot of already pre-established laws and about who can make money and how. But again, the parody part does allow for a lot of freedom there.
I want to focus on that legal aspect. So, well, I have three questions. First of all, first question. So, does that mean if someone is watching this and they kind of follow your work and they notice a distinctive style, essentially you have no problem with them
I personally
copying
don't. I know a lot of. Yeah, I
what
don't
you do?
personally. I know a lot of. Most people in my
Okay.
circle do, though. Most people are. And again, this comes from people that think that they need to. Again, my first patent, I was 22 years old working at an industrial design firm in North Carolina, and I got a patent. Well, I've never seen a freaking dollar off of that. It's just I got paid to design something. They patented it. They used my particular idea. I got a utility patent, which is how it works. Really important, but doesn't. I get more value out of telling people I have 4 patents, just like I'm saying right here, than actually the patent itself. So again, I think if someone wants to study any artist and try to mimic them, they try to grow themselves as a person, as a content creator, as a filmmaker, as an artist, that's great. Mimic these people as much as you can and learn from them. And honestly, this comes up a lot too. People think, oh, as an artist, I don't have any style. I don't have my own personal style. But every single human on earth has their own personal style. So even if you put any of the artists we talked about into any of these apps, the app's going to give you based on the algorithm for sure. But what you do with that, again, if you're just, I don't see too much value myself in just taking a midjourney image and posting it. Even on Twitter, I could post a beautiful thing by itself and get no likes. Really, the key to that in Twitter to getting something going viral is again more the meme aspects, but the text, what you write to describe the image. That's really where the hook is, and that's even a storytelling aspect there. So, God.
So, on the legal front, so are you saying that if, let's say, this person who does Frank Frazetta paintings via AI, as long as that person doesn't label it as Frank Frazetta and try to make money off of those images, is that like is the money making / parody aspect the key?
No,
Like,
let
what's
me explain it a little better. Let's say this kid copied Frank Frazetta's artwork exactly, printed them out on canvas, goes downtown, gets an art gallery, has a big party, tries to sell them for $thousands a piece. He won't sell it. He won't sell a single painting unless he has his own reputation. You see what I'm saying? Like, If you're just copying a Picasso, doesn't matter, you're just copying Picasso, but who are you? Like, again, it's back to the NFT scene. Just because you can paint doesn't mean you're going to make millions on NFTs. It's your reputation.
Okay, so to crystallize what you're saying, just so I make sure I understand. So you're saying that the people, particularly the artists, the visual artists, who are upset that a lot of the outputs were trained on their work, you feel that to some degree they are arguing about the wrong thing, because whether it's a human creating the output or an AI creating the output, the end result won't get any real traction unless the person behind it has some sort of
Absolutely.
backstory or reputation
Absolutely.
themselves.
Because
Okay.
an image is
All right.
just an image. You can have beautiful ones or not. Um, Making money off of it, so the our T2 remake is I'm struggling over this myself. I would love to show that film here in Cincinnati and charge $10 at the door to have people see it, but I don't. But even then, what is that? Just a few $1,000s for one night? I don't. That's I'm not going to care to steal the few $1,000s from the people that originally created T2. If I could put a movie like that, and this film will be shown in theaters for sure. But yeah, someone's got to figure out where the profits go. But again, imagine going into, as a content creator or artist that's never made a film before, just saying, hey, my credits are on the screen of this parody. That's worth millions to me just to have that happen. The experience alone is more worth the cash.
Well, let me just speak, I guess, for the artists who are making this case. What you're saying is kind of, I think, your position, and it sounds like, these are your ethics, but we all know that there are bad actors out there. And we all know that everyone isn't always aware of the source, the provenance of a particular art style. And because there are bad actors out there, I think that's kind of the motivation from these artists, whether it's music or visual art. But I would focus on visual art. Is that there are bad actors out there who will sell their work as whoever, whether it's using the name of the original artist or not. And essentially, all of these many years of developing their art style and their technique just kind of like get and I understand what you're saying. I kind of agree with one aspect with what you're saying in terms of, like, I think the key or the salvation for humans with regard to AI outputs and all of this virtual stuff is people want a backstory. They want to know who you are. Like, how did you get here? I don't want to just hear your script and your story. I want to know kind of like what are the scars, what are the ups and downs. And machines can't do that yet. Humans can only do that. And so that establishes our backstory, which establishes a sense of value. Having said that, I think the legal position some of these artists are taking is like, there are bad actors and there are people who will consume this stuff and they won't necessarily know that they're getting the content or the output from a bad actor. What would you say in that case, like in terms of that concern?
Yeah, I know exactly the position there, and generally, yeah, I'm on the side of the artist here, but I think the scale matters a lot. If one thing that's happened a lot was the early days of, we're still, I guess, we're in the early days of just AI images, people selling them on Etsy, for example, totally just copying some artist who does a really good work and then turn around and selling them on Etsy. Well, again, and that kid who's doing that might make a few $1,000s, but they're not making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the people who buy it might not ever find out that, this other dude was the original artist of that. They might not ever know. But at the same time, it's promoting the whole genre and seeing it at the same time in a bad way. I don't say this is, I don't encourage this, but it's like, even a lawsuit. How much is a lawsuit going to cost to go after someone on Etsy making a few $1,000s. Like, is it really worth the time? No, I think, I think there'll be
Okay.
some
Okay, I
protection and
get you.
controls and all that put in place. And I think software eventually get there and help us do that for sure. And the dream of the internet was always like, let's do micro payments where everybody's getting a little small percentage of all these deals that are happening. I still think that's a great solution for all this for sure. But going on strike and shutting down your whole industry is kind of ridiculous when there's kids again just pushing forward and ignoring those people that are crying over it. So I yeah.
That's actually that's the point I want to end on shortly. But before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about Twitter. Um, it's fascinating to me that AI art has become this big, like one of the pillars of Twitter in terms of the discussion and sharing. Historically, the main pillars of Twitter have been, I would say, politics and to some degree, crypto and finance. And my theory, and I'm curious to know if you agree or disagree, my theory is that a lot of the people who were in the crypto space moved into the NFT space. And then when AI, emerged, kind of like similar to what you were saying, there were a lot of people who weren't necessarily interested in the art aspect. They were kind of just interested in the profit aspect. And so that crypto NFT community immediately, almost overnight, transformed into this AI community. And that's why you have this huge traction on Twitter versus, I mean, you have stuff on Instagram, you have AI art on Instagram, you have AI art obviously on Discord and I guess on Telegram to some degree and Reddit. But it seems like the pulse of AI art seems to live on Twitter or X now X. So is that, do you
Yeah,
agree with that theory? Do you think
I'm
it's
glad
something
you're
else?
saying this. You're validating some of my the same theory I've had too. I again, you mentioned the big pillars of Twitter were politics and crypto, and I was a politics shit poster on Twitter for mostly Facebook back in those days, and I wish I'd focused on something else to be honest. But when I was also huge into crypto. I bought Bitcoin at $20 back in the day on Mt. Gox. So I sold it for 100 and make it. Yeah, yeah, of course.
No,
I did good in
no.
crypto. I did for the with you 2013 to 2016 or so. But yeah, I'm in that same boat. And again with the artistic background and creative history, I jumped at the chance that AI art and I just transitioned fine. So, but to be honest, like I'm in the middle of the bubble, and so I don't know how outsiders see it so much. I do have friends that tell me, "Hey, my friend on Facebook is starting to get into AI art and they're posting, but it's nowhere near as good as you." And I'm like, "Well, that's awesome to hear." And again, that brings that human element to it. They're you side by side, two different people, a new person and someone with a year into midjourney, they definitely get different results out of midjourney still. So but yeah, over to Twitter, yeah, it's a really good platform. I think it's transitioned, I think, great with Elon's changes and such. I wish he would do a lot more. I can't stand that I can't post 4K video, but 4K video versus 1080 is such a disgrace that we can't do that yet. But yeah, it's a great community. It's a network of people. It's networking. I tell people, this is what I tell people: what you might think LinkedIn is used for, just treat Twitter like that. Twitter is where you build your personal brand. It's where you build your network. It's where you're going to get gigs and jobs and offers. And I get hit up every day. Many people are like, "Hey, can I hire you for this? Can you do this? How do you do this? How can I grow? How can I learn?" That doesn't happen on any other platform. I just don't.
So I mean, to wrap up, um, this strike that just happened, it's over. There's still the Screen Actors Guild. They're still on strike. The Directors Guild, they sealed their deal months ago. But we're in kind of like new territory. And even with these new protections for writers in Hollywood, that won't last, necessarily for the next 20 years. That's kind of a limited agreement. And everyone is kind of assuming that, the actors will have their agreement. But when as someone who's kind of on the cutting edge of this, when you look at the space of just filmmaking in general, big budget, small, whatever, I mean, what would you, let's say we just, hop on a flight right now and we like have like a big kind of cafe meeting, somewhere on Sunset Boulevard, and you're talking to studio people, independent film directors, actors, producers, key grips, crew members, lighting professionals, everyone. You're speaking to them. What would your advice be to Hollywood professionals with regard to how they do or don't engage AI moving
Great
forward?
question, and I'll answer it two different ways. You know, to those people, how much do they make compared to the star? In case of Terminator 2, Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to get 90% of the profit, probably, or well, the studio is, but of all the employees working on the film, a lot of people are going to be down towards minimum wage there, and trying to get that, every time it shows on Netflix, get a penny here and a penny there. Great, fight for that if you want to, but I would advise anybody who's, again, in the scene. They know how to make films. They see how it's done, even if they're only one part of it. So start creating your own IP, your own intellectual property. Come up with your own characters. We don't need to make a Terminator 8, we with AI. Come up with a new character, push that character, and all of a sudden, that's what you're known for. This is your character, and make it happen. Similarly, that's how that's why I bought this MIDI keyboard, because this summer I was like, man, music, musicians who make music really need to partner up with some AI artists to make some videos for their work. And I put out an open call to the internet. I said, hey, musicians, if you're sitting on several gigs and hard drives of music that you have not released, why not? Are you only on SoundCloud, or why not put it on YouTube? Why not promote it on Twitter? And yeah, you're gonna need a video. So I told them, to all the musicians, and I still mean this, if you're a musician and you're not creating AI art videos for your music, you need to learn how, because the people who are making AI videos right now are learning music. And that's what drove me to go back into music, because I, again, wanted to make music videos myself. I want to make, rap videos. I want to so bad. And I've done, several. I did a Tupac video last year. I loved it. And, I want to do more, but I don't necessarily need to do Tupac. I want to come up with my own alter ego dude. I like MF Doom. I want to recreate. I want to do my own version of him. So I'm moving in that direction, where I'm going to start making my own music, and try to make that scene work for me too. So again, all these people working in Hollywood that aren't getting paid the big bucks like the stars, create your own star, because you can do it. And so that's my advice there. Well, I've been around this a long time, and this is the most exciting time I've ever had as a creative person. This year alone has been just like the most rewarding. I feel like leading up to this point, I've always dabbled between industrial design and web development and code, and I also do a lot of like woodworking. I have a CNC router in the garage. I do a lot of that type of production. So I'm very artistic, but I feel like all those things are coming together finally, at least for myself, but for everybody, to be able to be a creative person at home, creating, videos, creating music videos. It's finally coming together, and this is truly, we now are entering the creator's economy, and it's an amazing time to be alive. So I'm pretty stoked. That's what keeps me going. But yeah, it's hard to keep up.
Well, Ben, thanks for joining us again. It's bennash.com, yes?
What?
And your Twitter or your X handle is?
Ben Nash, two N's, one word, BENNASH.
And are you on Instagram again?
Yeah, same. Also Ben Nash. I post in order, most to Twitter. My YouTube is pretty good, but it's I need to. I don't post enough of my stuff to YouTube, but and again, Instagram and Facebook's really just for my family, because they're not on these other platforms.
Gotcha. On X. Okay. Ben Nash on X. Ben, I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. This has been enlightening, and I think it'll be educational for many people, not just in Hollywood, but just artists, like people who are traditional artists who are looking to get into the space. I think this will be extremely educational. So thanks again for joining us, Ben.
Thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun. My pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.